I'd like to welcome you to our District 219 Sophomore College Night. It's hard to believe that your students have been in school for a year and a month or 2 months. And now that we're starting your sophomore year, we just want to check in with the sophomores to make sure that they are thinking about their post-high school plans, as we know that this year will be going fast, and then we want to help them start thinking about their junior year and their senior year. Tonight, we are honored to have our Niles North College and Career Counselor, Allegra Giulietti Schmidt, our Dean of College Counseling, Mr. Jerry Pope, and Assistant Director from the University of Iowa, Susan Dickinson. Before we turn our program over to Ms. Dickinson, Allegra and I would like to just share a few comments and just kind of tell you where we are and kind of help the junior start or the sophomore start thinking about, their post-high school plans. We always like to say thank you to our liaisons. Our liaisons are the hard workers that translate all of our programs for us. So if you need translation, we would encourage you to reach out to them. We will be putting this program on the website. And after that, if you need some translation services, feel free to reach out to one of our family liaisons. As you start thinking about yourself, sophomores, we want you just to kind of know who you are as you kind of go through this whole process. What are your values with your ambitions, your achievement, your academic strength, your interests, your career pathways. And as you kind of start thinking about this, hopefully you can start building a plan to know so you can prepare yourself for life here at Niles West and Niles North, but also ultimately for the future. So what do you value? Do you value the opportunities to be with family members? Do you value a city? Do you value time away? What are those values that kind of make sure that you are strong and that you can kind of figure out your post-high school plans? What are your goals? What are you thinking about after high school? Do you want to see yourself at a 4-year institution? Do you want to see yourself at a 2-year institution? As you kind of start thinking back about your high school, how was your freshman year? Did you achieve the high honor roll? Did you achieve, the grades that you wanted? Did you achieve making a sports team or joining a club? Think about those achievements and how you can strengthen those, but also move on. And then we talk about our academic strengths. How did you do in the classroom? I know last year was a challenge for a lot of students, or for all students, because we were remote for that first year. How are you doing now that you're back into the classroom? So look at your strengths in the academic. Think about the classes that you enjoy. Think about what you want to do in the next 2.5 years, the classes that you might want to take. And then always we look at our interest, and that can lead into some of our careers for you in the future. We are happy that we have a program called Maya Learning. It's our new college and career platform. We wanted just to share this out with our sophomore families. What you can do on Maya is at mayalearning.com. You log in with your Google account. You can research colleges and career, compare yourself to other Niles North and Niles West students who are admitted. And then you can look at all the upcoming college visits. And then the best thing is that you can log on to with your school account. The reason why we want you to look at this is that you need to start preparing now as sophomores to begin thinking about life after high school. And that's kind of finding that right fit. And we'll talk about that as well. Under character, you could take a lot of different assessments. The 4 assessments that you could take is an interest profiler, work values, your personality, and skills. Each one of these profiles will help students kind of determine what are their strengths and maybe kind of different careers that they would like to look at or kind of research. The skills is nice because it's the soft skills. It's just talking about skills that you value. Are you a decision maker? Are you kind of more behind the scenes? Your personality, everyone has a personality, and this one breaks down the Myers-Briggs. Are you an ENFTJ or are you an ISTP? These are just kind of nice personality traits to kind of look at different careers. And then interest profiler, do you like looking at stars? Do you like working with your hands? These are important. If you take each one of these career inventories, you'll get an assessment of your results, and you can kind of lead into a career. Also, we have this in Maya that you could do a college search. As students start thinking about their life after high school, they could do a search, and they can kind of click on all the different filters at the top. So this student said that they are looking at a school in Illinois. They want to be a 4-year institution they want to, you know, and then they came up with these different schools. And then they can, what we always encourage our students to do is to heart the schools that you're considering. The nice thing about when you heart the schools is that we hear in the future that Maya is going to be able to email you when these colleges visit the Niles West or Niles North. In addition, sometimes Ms. GS and I receive invitations for students who are interested in those universities, and we could filter that out and we can send you an invitation to that school if they're having a special hotel presentation, or maybe that they're offering a fly-in trip for a student. So that is why we want you to start hearting these schools and putting them into your considering list. If you click on a school link, for example, we clicked on University of Illinois, Chicago, you'll see the application analysis, the data from the past few years. You'll see that how many students from Niles North or Niles West applied, how many students applied early or regular, and then the admissions, kind of the admission statistics, the GPA of early versus regular, the lowest, the average. So it's really nice program for you to compare yourselves to other Niles North or Niles West students. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. GS right now.
Thanks, Mr. Jin. So part of what Mr. Jin just went over in Maya Learning is the beginning stages of the self-discovery, the self-exploration, and the tools that can be used to further assess and further understand yourself. Part of that is learning more about what your personality, what your skill set, what your interests can lead to for post-secondary planning. And then taking a look at what those requirements are, or potentially what courses are recommended for certain careers and career pathways, so that you can tailor the next 2.5 years to match your career aspirations or just your post-secondary aspirations. So if you're interested in engineering or in business, you may want to have those conversations with counselors and teachers about, advanced classes in math and science, and also just assessing your performance up to this point. So knowing yourself, knowing your interests, knowing some of the things that have worked and haven't worked well for you and the way that you learn, knowing where you are, assessing how last year, of all the years, obviously there were so many different factors that can impact or did impact our students' learning, and letting that kind of sit where it was or where it is, but also just looking forward and really being realistic about where you want to be and what needs to happen in order to accomplish that. So moving forward with intention and information. So part of that is assessing your GPA initially. So up to this point, you'll have 2 semesters of a cumulative GPA, and think of it as 1/3 completed. So when you're applying to colleges and universities, predominantly 4-year colleges and universities, you were applying at the beginning of senior year. So it would be factoring in your freshman year, your sophomore year, and your junior year to make up your cumulative GPA. So what Mr. Jin just referenced in terms of Maya Learning and looking at historical data for students' acceptances into certain institutions, you can start to get an idea of where you are in relation to our past student data, and again, where you need to be or where you should maintain. Also assessing academic honors and awards, activities, extracurricular, volunteer options that doesn't necessarily have to be associated with school. We know that a lot of our students had home responsibilities last year, or picked up extra hours, or picked up a part-time job to help assist family needs. And so whatever that looks like for you, just what else have you done, or what else do you want to do to be engaged in the community, to gain more information about different career paths that might be a good fit for you, and how are you being honored or acknowledged or recognized for the work that you are involved with. And lastly, we'll just say that teacher relationships are very important. And now that we are in person, we see the rapport building back up between our students and staff. It certainly is a little easier to connect while in person than in remote. So in terms of order of importance, historically and moving forward, we're in a little bit of a unique position, and it's important that we acknowledge that that last year and this current application cycle for the class of 2022 certainly looks a little bit different. And while we can't say for certain what your class is going to look like in terms of areas of importance for college admissions, whether or not there's going to be, as much or not that much weight placed on standardized test scores, we can say with pretty great confidence that academic record is always going to be at the top of admissions review committee's lists. And academic record would include the courses taken, the course rigor, and then the grades received in those academic courses. And admissions counselors will also just assess the students' choice in classes in comparison to what we offer here at Niles North or Niles West. They're not comparing you to other districts, other schools, other systems. They are simply comparing students to students within the same academic institution. So letters of recommendation kind of goes back to the point I just made in terms of connecting with teachers. A lot of students will ask recommendation letters to be written from sophomore and junior teachers. And so again, starting to make those connections with teachers can help in many ways. And then essays and student activities and employment come in a little bit later in that rank order. So once again, let's start with GPA, where you are now versus where you want to be. Assessing GPA. Mr. Jen, can you advance to the next slide, please? Thank you. Assessing GPA is something that should be consistent and regular. If you aren't familiar with how your GPA looks on a transcript, we invite all students and families to access transcripts via the Infinite Campus portal. I would encourage students to look at this at the end of every semester so that you can get a sense of not only what your individual semester GPA looks like, but also how that impacts your overall cumulative GPA. And so the screen that is pulled up right now is a screenshot and a close-up of what that looks like and how to assess the semester courses taken, the grades received, the credits received, as well as a breakdown of the weighted GPA and the unweighted GPA. And it's important to note that both Niles North and Niles West are on a 4.0 GPA for both unweighted and weighted. Weighted GPA takes into account students who are enrolled in and receive grades in anything that is an advanced and honors and AP course. So most honors courses get a 0.5 bump in GPA, and AP courses or AP equivalent courses get a full point bump in their GPA. A few next steps, a few recommendations for sophomores, and our guest presenter will go into this as well from her perspective. For in school, these are just a couple of general points that we'd like to make. While we absolutely recognize that last year was certainly not the transition into high school that we would have liked for you, nor would you have expected heading into high school. And we do recognize that the transition from freshman year to sophomore year has also been a difficult one. We hope that students are able to find the resources and the connections in the building now that we're in person to maintain focus on academics and get the assistance they need to do the best that they possibly can with their academic coursework. the do not lighten your academic load for junior year is simply just suggesting the importance of continuing to challenge oneself within reason, and to demonstrate kind of like that increase in rigor, since it is what we offer within our district. Meeting with your school counselor at least once a semester is part of our counseling curriculum that is designed, that's already put in place for you. But we encourage students that if you need anything at all, whether it's academic or social emotionally related, including post-secondary, that you connect with your school counselor. And of course, Mr. Jin and myself are available too. And then to stay involved in school activities, knowing that last year may have presented challenges for getting involved in the way that you would have liked to get involved. We do encourage students to venture outside of their comfort zones, try something new that perhaps you would have last year had we been in person, and to maintain a level of involvement. And that can stay consistent over the course of 4 years, or you can try new things on for size. A date that's coming up, we want to make sure everybody has on their calendars, is our PSAT exam date, which is October 26th, and that will be in school during the school day. And then a few other important things to note is in order to best serve yourself leading into senior year in preparation for exiting high school, these are a few things that you can take advantage of right now with your college exploration. So Mr. Jin, you could go to the next slide. In school, once again, these are all of our key highlights of how to best prepare yourself for a healthy and happy high school experience, as well as better getting to know yourself, which then leads to more productive conversations with Mr. Jin and I, and visiting college campuses, whether that's virtual or in person, meeting with college representatives. Mr. Jin talked about our college rep visits being available, the schedule being available in Maya Learning. And then here are a couple of dates, in addition to that PSAT date, here's a couple of dates to put on your calendar. If you're interested in getting started on virtual college fairs where you can learn a lot about a lot of schools in a short amount of time, here are some upcoming college fairs at the national level. And you can sign up via virtualcollegefairs.org. And then our college fair, our district college fair, is scheduled for Tuesday, March 22nd. More information to be determined. A few programs also to keep in mind that are geared towards sophomores and other classes is exploring college options, where we bring in representatives that speak for two-year colleges, four-year private liberal arts colleges, and the big state research institution. So that's one that you will not want to miss. And once again, our college fair is the 22nd of March. And as always, in addition to my learning, you can come into our spaces, both at Niles North and Niles West, at the College and Career Resource Centers, to get assistance, to ask questions, to utilize our resources, databases, college books and whatnot. And then there's other online platforms in addition to Maya Learning that supplement the career exploration process. And without further ado, we are going to turn it over to our guest presenter. She's the Assistant Director of the University of Iowa. And Susan Dickinson, the screen is all yours. We're going to switch out and allow you to share your screen now.
All right, sounds great. Well, it's nice to see everyone virtually. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Susan Dickinson. I'm the Assistant Director for High Ability Recruitment at the University of Iowa. Is my screen sharing okay?
You're great.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to cover a few things tonight from the college and university perspective. You all have great school counselors who are giving you excellent advice to prepare you for this process, but sometimes it can be nice to hear from someone on the other side of the desk and kind of get a little bit of our perspective on what we're looking for and what we recommend, particularly throughout sophomore and junior year of high school. So a little background for me, this is currently my 8th year working in college admissions, 5th at the University of Iowa. And before coming to Iowa, I actually worked for a nonprofit that focused on financial aid preparation and college planning and prep for families in the state of Iowa. So I've been doing this work for a while, like to think I've come up with a few different ideas of things that can be useful for students as you get ready to really engage in this college search process. So a few pieces of advice or things that I wanted to share with you all tonight. I think in terms of planning ahead for sophomore year, you're at a really exciting point as current sophomores right now, thinking ahead to the next 2.5 years of high school. My husband's a high school teacher, and he always says that sophomores are his favorite group of students to work with because sophomores are at a really interesting place where you've figured out a lot of things about high school and you're really having that confidence to start to explore and make the most of your high school experience. And that's something that I really want to encourage you all to do throughout your next 2.5 years in high school is continue to try new things. You have a lot of support where you are right now in trying new things and challenging yourselves to figure out what it is that you're really interested in. And those are things that are going to appeal to colleges and universities when you start to go through the college application process. So what are we looking for? What are colleges and universities looking for when we review applications? Every college or university is going to be looking for something a little bit different, but in general, there are some things that every student can do no matter what institution you're planning to look at that can help make you a strong applicant. And these are things that you can start now. In terms of in the classroom, exactly the things that have already been covered tonight, we're looking for rigor. We want to see students take challenging courses throughout all 4 years of high school, and we want to see them succeed in those courses. Now, rigor looks different at every school. So again, we will be evaluating students within the context of their own high school, but we want you to take full advantage of what your high school has to offer, and we want you to challenge yourself. I'm always disappointed when I see a transcript from a student who took challenging coursework until junior year and then decided to take the easy way out as a senior. We want to see you continue to push yourself, challenge yourself, and grow even in those final semesters of high school. Typically, we want to see students really focus in on core courses. At the University of Iowa, when we look at core courses, we're really looking at math and science, English, social studies, and world language. But we also do like to see electives. That's kind of our way of seeing what are you interested in that you really wanted to pursue outside of your required coursework. So especially if you know what you might want to study or you're figuring out what your academic interests are, we do love to see students take elective courses and explore some things that you might be interested in. If you are really passionate about art or music and you want to make sure to fit those things into your schedule, that's not a bad thing. We love to see that, but do make sure that you are filling your schedule with those challenging courses and really pushing yourself and showing us what you're capable of. We also obviously like to see students with strong grades. I know that sometimes, especially for you all with freshman and sophomore year being sort of in the midst of the pandemic, things happen, right? But ultimately, even if there are maybe a semester, or there's maybe a semester or two where things got off to a rough start, we really want to see an upward trend throughout your 4 years of high school. So we want to see strong grades, but if things happen, we want to see that you're bouncing back from that. That shows us a lot of resilience. We want to see that you're taking strides, finding academic strategies that work for you, problem solving, and making sure that if you are struggling in any of your courses, you're using the resources that are available to you to find a way to be successful. Because there might be courses in college that you struggle in, and we want you to be able to have those skills and that grit to be able to work through those challenges and make sure that you're able to find success by using those resources. So those are some of the things that we're looking for inside the classroom. Challenge and rigor. We're looking for grit and resilience. We're looking for you to make the most of what your high school has to offer. What are we looking for outside of the classroom? I think one thing that I encourage you to think of as sophomores this year is, how are you impacting your school or your community? What's sort of the legacy or the impact that you're going to leave 2.5 years from now when you graduate? And that could be an impact on a particular club or organization. That could be an impact you're leaving on an athletic team or a music organization, or just in your immediate friend group. But what's sort of the legacy or the impact that you have right now within your school community? When we think about kind of what we are looking for, particularly at the University of Iowa, when we're doing scholarship reviews or reviewing a student for our honors program, we like to see students that are involved in a variety of things and are trying something new throughout their time in high school. You might by this point have things that you're really passionate about. Maybe you've been playing basketball since the 3rd grade. That's something you know you're going to continue to do until graduation. That's obviously a big part of your life, and we want you to prioritize that. But also take advantage of your years in high school to try new things. It's okay if you try something and don't stick with it the next year. Even if I'm looking at a student's activity list or resume and I see a few things that they only stuck with for a semester or two, that's okay. That shows me that you're willing to try new things and you're exploring your interests to see what's the right fit for you. Some other things that we like to see in terms of involvement, obviously we love to see students that are involved in the arts, athletics, volunteering, leadership positions within student organizations at your school. But we know there's also a lot of things that might take your attention outside of school-sponsored activities. It tells me a lot if I see a transcript or an application from a student who is taking challenging coursework, pulling in good grades, and working a part-time job 5 or 10 hours a week. That shows me a real strength of character. That shows me that you really know how to manage your time. That can really tell me a lot about a student. So part-time work is definitely something that we would want you to include on an application if that's something that you're involved in. Same goes for volunteering, or if you have any caretaking responsibilities at home. Those are things that colleges value and prioritize because we know that takes a lot of your time and effort. And then also leadership. Your sophomores now, you've had a little bit of time to adjust to some of your student organizations. Challenge yourself over the next few years to take on leadership roles. If you're involved in student council, maybe by the time you hit your senior year of high school, you think about running for student body president. Are you in band or choir? Is there an opportunity for you to step in as a section leader? Those don't have to necessarily be formal leadership roles either. If you're really active in an athletic team, can you take a role in the next few years of really mentoring younger athletes and younger teammates to make sure that they're having a good experience as well? So whether those leadership roles are formal or informal, those are things that colleges are going to highly value when it gets to application time. A couple other things, and I won't dwell too much on these since they've already been mentioned, but when we talk about your application, certain schools, whether it's for admission, scholarships, they might ask for things like letters of recommendation. Some may request test scores and some will request essays as well. So when it comes to letters of recommendation, again, I think focusing on making genuine connections. When it comes time to ask a teacher for a letter of recommendation, choose someone who knows the real you. It doesn't necessarily have to be the instructor that you have the strongest grade in their class, but what instructor has really gotten to know you the best? In what class do you feel like you can really be yourself and be present and be valued for that? That might be a good teacher to have write a recommendation letter for you. And you can work on that now by just simply engaging in conversation with your instructors. Get to know your teachers, let them get to know you. That will help you cultivate those relationships so that by the time junior and senior year roll around, you have some teachers that you feel really confident could write you a great letter of recommendation. In terms of standardized tests, this is a little tricky right now because there's still a lot of uncertainty as to what will happen and what's the future of standardized testing. At the University of Iowa, we are currently test optional for this year's seniors, but we're waiting on the university and our state to make some final decisions about upcoming classes. So we don't know yet for this year's sophomores and juniors whether we'll continue to be test optional. I think there's a lot of other colleges and universities that are in our same position. So what I would encourage and what I typically recommend to students is if you take the test, it doesn't hurt. So for us at Iowa, let's say you decided that during your junior year, you were going to take the ACT or the SAT, you could still choose whether or not you wanted to report that score on your application. It doesn't hurt you to take the test, have the score, see how it goes, and then you can make that decision when the application time comes around of whether or not you want to use that test score. So if you do have opportunities to take standardized tests, especially if it's through your high school, that's an opportunity we would recommend you take advantage of. There are two different main options for standardized tests, the ACT and the SAT. Almost every college or university is going to accept either one equally and not have a preference. So either one should be fine, whichever is most easily accessible to you. You might hear some conversations about something called super scoring, particularly if you're taking the ACT. Super scoring is where a student, if they take that test multiple times, they can take their highest subscore from each of the sections and average them together to make a higher super score. Some colleges and universities will accept a super score, some don't. So those are some terms that you might hear with regards to standardized testing when you start to talk to college admission counselors. You'll hear phrases like test optional, test required, super scoring. So just some good things to know and keep in mind. Most colleges and universities are currently test optional because of the pandemic, and many students didn't have access to take those exams. So that's a good question to ask when you start to talk to colleges and universities, either at your high school or at a college fair. Ask what their policy is for tests. Test optional means that typically that you can either choose to apply with or without a test score. So again, good questions, good things to have on your radar, but it's not going to hurt you to take the test and have a score. You can decide what you want to do with that later on. And then finally, just to touch a little bit on essays, every college or university is going to handle essays a little bit differently. At Iowa, we will use essays specifically for some of our competitive scholarships or for some selective programs like our university honors program. But in general, when colleges and universities are asking for an essay, really what we want from that essay is a glimpse into your voice. We want to hear a little bit more about you and your personality that we can't get from looking at a transcript or even looking at your activities list or your resume. So when you start to practice those essays, and your English teachers will likely have you start practicing those relatively soon, be authentic, use your voice, share a little bit more of yourself. And those are skills within your writing that you can start working on now. In your English courses, really pay attention and work hard on all of your writing assignments, because any type of writing is going to help you develop those skills that you'll use when it comes time to write those personal essays senior year. So really listen to your English teachers and take their advice, especially when it comes to honing your writing style and your voice when you write. Also be thinking about, as you grow throughout the next 2.5 years, what's the story about yourself and your high school experience that you want to tell? What is it about you that you want to present to a college admission counselor when you apply for admission? So those are questions you don't have to have the answer to right now, but they're good things to think about and reflect about throughout your sophomore, junior, and the beginning of your senior year. One other thing that I want to touch on, I know we talked a lot about rigor and how we're looking for students to take challenging courses throughout high school. You might have some opportunities to take college credit courses in high school. This is something that we encourage. I know not every high school has the opportunity to take college credit, so it's great that you may have some of those opportunities throughout your junior and senior year. There's two primary ways that at Iowa we see students bringing in college credit from high school. The first is advanced placement, or AP. AP courses are going to be offered through the high school. The credit is granted through an organization called the College Board, which is also the same company that does the SAT. In order to get college credit for your AP tests, students will take the AP course, which is typically a year long, and at the end of the year, they're going to take an AP or advanced placement exam. It's a standardized exam, so every student that's taking that AP course across the country will take that same test, and depending on your score on that test, you may receive college credit. The scores are done on a 1 to 5 scale. Every college is a little bit different, but at Iowa in particular, if you score a 4 or a 5 on an AP exam, you can bring in credit for that AP course. So that's one way that we see a lot of students, especially from the state of Illinois, bringing in college credit from high school. Your other option might be doing dual credit. Dual credit courses are, the credit is granted by a local community college. Those courses might be housed in your high school. You might go to the community college campus to take those, or they might be offered online. Many school districts will offer a mix of the three, but the credit itself is coming from that community college. One good thing to keep in mind if you are taking any of those dual credit classes, always feel free, if you know that you have particular colleges or universities that you have in mind that you think you might want to apply to, check in with them to see how those courses will transfer. I know that's a very common question we get at Iowa. I'm getting ready for senior year. I'm going to take some dual credit courses through my local community college. How would those transfer? So those are also good questions as you get into junior and senior year to talk to your admission counselors about as you engage in those conversations with college counselors. All right, so just a couple quick pieces of advice when it comes to your junior and senior year. Making the most of your junior year, and this is very similar advice to what your counselors shared. Take a full and challenging course load, do some investigation into standardized tests, and consider starting to prepare for those or even taking those your junior year of high school. Most common time that we see students take the ACT or the SAT is spring and summer of their junior year. So spring of junior year, summer between junior and senior year. That gives you maybe some opportunities to retake those tests if you choose to. The other thing that you should start doing sophomore and junior year is just developing your list of colleges that you want to look into. And resources like having a college rep visit your high school and attending a college fair, whether that's virtual or in person, is a really great way for you to start information gathering. So when you have access to those college fairs, again, whether virtual or in person, go and visit tables or websites from a bunch of different colleges and universities. Get some information that you can look through, make a connection with a college rep, ask a few basic questions. You don't have to get super in depth at this point. Just start gathering your information of what schools you're interested in that you want to learn more about. You can then spend your junior year narrowing down that list. So when you are talking to those college representatives, either at the fair or at your high school, you're really just gathering information about the basics. Where's the school located? What is the size of campus? What types of programs do they offer? If you have something in mind, do they offer your specific major? What's kind of the atmosphere on campus? What are some things that students are involved in outside of class? And just get a little bit of a better feel for what that campus is like. Then as you start to narrow down through the end of your junior year, you can start to attend campus visits. So when you narrow down your list, you can visit some campuses and start to narrow down further. How far from home do you want to be? What size campus is going to be the right fit for you? Those are questions that it becomes much easier to answer once you've spent some time on college campuses throughout your sophomore and junior year. I really recommend that you start to do that now as sophomores and definitely throughout your junior year, because senior year will get very hectic and very busy. There's a lot that will happen senior year. You're going to continue doing college visits, but oftentimes we see students by senior year, they might be visiting campus for the second time as they're really starting to make their decisions about what school is the right fit. We do want you to continue to take a full and challenging course load throughout senior year, and definitely keep an updated list of admission requirements or important deadlines at the schools that you're applying to. We will typically send a checklist to students if they're admitted to the University of Iowa with some important dates to put down on the calendar, just so that you're not missing out on any important information. We do recommend, and this goes for many colleges and universities across the country, start your applications early. Prepare your application materials over the summer and be ready to submit those applications early in the fall semester of your senior year. Many colleges will have early action deadlines. Ours, for example, is November 1st, which is a pretty common early action deadline for four-year institutions. So definitely be ready for that process so that you can get everything done for the admission process early in the fall semester. Once you have submitted your application, definitely keep in touch with your admission counselors. This can be a big process. Deadlines and processes are different at every school, and we're here to help you. That's our job. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out to us in whatever way works best for you. Some colleges and universities may send you text messages or emails, or if you prefer to connect on the phone, that works too, but definitely be sure that you're connecting with college professionals. You'll also, during your senior year, start to think a lot about cost of attendance and financial aid. You're going to fill out a form called the FAFSA, or the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, typically in the fall of your senior year. That's a form for both federal and institutional need-based aid. And you'll also start your scholarship search through the schools that you've applied to, and maybe through some local sources as well. You'll start applying for scholarships. And so that's going to take a lot of time throughout senior year. So that's why we really encourage you to get the admission piece done early. Towards the end of senior year, that's when we typically see students do a second or maybe even third visit to your top choices. And by the end of senior year, you're going to start to narrow down and make those final decisions about where you'll plan to attend. For us at the University of Iowa this year, our decision day is May 2nd. So by the end of senior year, right before graduation, you'll likely have your final plans made and you'll know where it is that you'll be for the next 4 years, which is a really exciting time. The final thing I want to touch on here is just sort of how you can start to think about what colleges and universities are going to be the right fit for you. Fit is very different for each student, and there's a lot of conversations that will go into this idea of fit. I kind of think about the idea of the right college fit as encompassing a couple of different things. There's going to be the personal fit or the social fit, right? And those are factors like the size of campus. Some students really want a much smaller environment, so they're looking at small private liberal arts schools. Some students, a lot of the students that we see at Iowa, they're really looking for that Big Ten research environment on a large campus. Some students are looking for something in between, and that's where you might start to look at some of the kind of mid-sized regional institutions. So the idea of what size campus you're looking for is a big question in terms of personal fit. But that could also be, what type of experience are you looking for? Are you wanting to go to a place where most students stay on campus on the weekends and there's lots of campus activities for you to get involved in? Are you really seeking out a place where you can get involved with specific organizations or specific activities? If you're an athlete and you know that you want to continue to compete at the college level, that's going to be a big factor in your personal fit. If you're a musician, you're going to want to make sure that if you want to continue to play, that you're going to have the opportunity to do that at the schools that you're looking at. So those are some of the questions that might go into that idea of personal fit. Obviously, you're going to college to get a degree, so you want to make sure that you're finding a place that's the right academic fit as well. A couple good questions to ask when you talk to college reps. If you have a specific major in mind, definitely ask if they have that major. That's definitely the first question, but also ask questions about double majoring or studying in multiple areas of study. If you have a variety of interests, are you going to be able to pursue all of those on that particular campus? What does it look like to change your major? The average number of times that a student changes their major in college is 6. So if you go in with a specific major in mind and you wind up changing, what does that look like? Does that particular college or university make that process easy, or is it more difficult? Also ask about professors. How often are you going to be able to connect with your instructors? Are you going to have the chance to form relationships with them, have one-on-one conversations with them? What are your class sizes going to look like? What types of academic resources are available to help you be successful in the classroom? Those are some questions that can help you determine a good academic fit. Financial fit will mainly come into play during your senior year of high school. That's when you're going to fill out that FAFSA form, apply for scholarships, but you can ask questions now that will help you get a better idea of financial fit. If you're looking at an institution that has a higher price tag, what types of scholarships and aid are typically available? What does a student from your home state typically pay in terms of sticker price after factoring in scholarships and financial aid? Are those scholarships renewable? Are they going to stick with you for the full time that you're a student there? So even though you won't get too much into the specifics yet, that's information that you can start to find out. And then finally, family fit. Whatever family means to you, the people that are your support system or that are in your corner, encourage them and invite them to be part of your college search process. I know for me, I was lucky that my parents were a big part of my college search process, but also my grandmother and my sister were a huge part of my college decision as well. That can even factor in things like how far from home do you want to be? I have and continue to have a really close relationship with my grandmother. And so I didn't want to be more than just a few hours away from home. So what are some of the family or social factors within your home community that are maybe influencing where you want to look or where you want to go? This is obviously your decision. It's your future, and we want you to really take the reins in this process. But feel free to invite your family or your loved ones or your support system along with you. They might also have some really good ideas about what type of place is going to allow you to be successful. So invite the people that know you best to be part of this decision with you as well. So those are all of the different things that are going to go into really helping you find your fit on campus. And hopefully this will help set you up for a successful college search process. I'm always happy to be a resource, whether you are looking at the University of Iowa or just have some general college search questions. So feel free to jot down my email address and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. But I think at this time, we're going to do a little bit of Q&A before we wrap up for the night.
Thank you, Susan. One of the questions I'm going to ask before we start the Q&A is, you talk about academic rigor. Is it better to get a B in an AP class or an A in a regular level class from a college perspective?
From my perspective at Iowa, I would rather see a student challenge themselves with the AP course and get a B. I think there's a lot that we can see based on the courses you choose to take. And if you're taking that AP course, that tells me that you're choosing to challenge yourself. And a B in an AP course is still a really strong grade. So that's kind of my perspective on that.
So I know that we've been answering a lot of questions in the chat throughout the presentation, but if anybody has additional questions, please feel free to enter them into the Q&A.
I just saw one in the Q&A about dual credit hours specific to the University of Iowa. We will allow students to transfer in up to 60 credits either from high school or if you choose to transfer in from a different institution. So one thing for us specifically, we offer free transfer advising to all of our students. So if you are taking college credit in high school and want to know how that will transfer in, or for students who are planning to start at a community college and then transfer, we would be happy to work with those students throughout their time at the community college. And I will put my email address up again.
And sorry for the delay in turning on my camera. I was eating popcorn. Anyway, great presentation, Susan. One of the questions I think bears repeating, though, I did answer it, but a student asked about a letter of recommendation from a teacher or from a club sponsor. And I said most colleges really prefer a core academic teacher and also maybe one from a school counselor, but every school is going to be different on that. And I know some do accept letters of recommendations from club sponsors and so on. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, from my perspective, I think it depends on how many letters of recommendation are being asked for. If it's just one, I would highly recommend that be from a classroom teacher in a core subject. One or two, a classroom teacher, maybe two classroom teachers, or a teacher and your school counselor. But if scholarship programs or universities are asking for up to three, that third, I think, is where you could have a little bit of flexibility. If you have, a supervisor at a part-time job, a volunteer coordinator, someone with your extracurricular activities that really can speak to something that's not being covered by your other letters of recommendation. I think that third one could be where there's room for that.
Thank you. And of course, the one thing we want to emphasize is that every college is going to be different, and to make sure you follow their instructions. Some may not want any letters of recommendations, which means they won't read them. And if they only ask for one from a core academic teacher and you send 5 or 7, then they just may randomly choose one, and that may not be the best one. So great advice, Susan. Thank you so much.
Yes, following directions is always very important in this process.
Yes. Susan, I think I'm going to ask this question. It was already answered online, but last year with the pandemic, how will colleges look at the students' freshman year, online learning versus in-person versus, that whole transition to high school? Maybe the grades weren't as good as they could have been if they started out right away as a freshman.
Absolutely. At Iowa, we are, especially when we're looking at, spring of 2020, the entire 2020 to 2021 academic year, we're being quite flexible. We know that every high school handled the pandemic differently. And so we're seeing in those particular semesters, we're seeing a lot of W's on transcripts. And I don't blame students for deciding I'm going to withdraw from AP Calc now that it's going to be taught in hybrid or online format. So we're understanding about those types of things. If students withdrew from classes, if you took a pass-fail option, we're being very flexible with that. We're also, I think for you all that were, freshmen during a hybrid year, even now this year, we're still making some adjustments during your sophomore year. What we're really going to look for is an upward trajectory. So if your freshman year didn't go great because online courses were a struggle, we get that. We were also working remotely and we had our own growing pains for that. I can't imagine what it was like to do, a full course load of 6 or 7 classes, half in person and half at home. So what we would be looking for then, if you are one of those students that struggled during that time of the pandemic and your grades weren't as strong as you'd like them to be, focus on increasing your GPA and strong grades from here on out. If we can see an upward trajectory, that's something that's going to speak strongly to us.
Here's another good question I'd like you to answer. How would you begin to talk to a sophomore who has gotten great grades, first honors last year, but is adamantly opposed to college at this point in his or her high school career?
I think sophomore year is early, right? And to the parents that are tuning in, your students might change their mind a dozen times between now and high school graduation of what their future holds. I think that at this point, keep up those great grades. Whatever that student decides to do, whether it's college right away or college a few years down the line, keep up the great grades and continue that academic success and continue to explore. I think even sometimes getting exposure to what a college campus is like or what the college environment is like can be a good thing, even if students don't ultimately choose that path. So if there are summer camps on college campuses that the student is interested in attending, if there are other youth programs that are being offered that can get a student on campus to just kind of see what the environment is like, that might change their mind a little bit on what they think college is versus the reality of it. But either way, I think students are going to have the most opportunities available to them if they keep those grades strong. Even if by the time senior year hits, they're still not really thinking going straight to a 4-year college, that's okay. They've still got the good grades. Those are going to give them a lot of options. So really focusing in on academic performance.
I would agree with that, Susan. I would say if your son or daughter is interested in a basketball game or a basketball team, bring them to a basketball game because they'll see the environment. If they're interested in a theater or a band, bring them to one of those concerts or a performance. This will get them excited about it and see the opportunities at a college that the college has. Next question, do colleges look at early graduation differently, or is it frowned upon to graduate early?
I think this is another one that it's really going to depend on the college. At Iowa, we don't necessarily frown upon that if a student graduates early, as long as they're meeting our minimum course requirements. So students need, for us, 4 years of English, 3 years each of social studies and science, 2 years of a world language, and then for math, we need algebra 1 and 2 and geometry. If you were able to complete all of your graduation requirements and all of our admission requirements in 3 years instead of 4, that wouldn't be a problem for us. But be sure to check in on any of the colleges that you're interested in applying to make sure that you're meeting their minimum course requirements. I think that could be the only potentially tricky thing. Some colleges might require additional things beyond what you need to do to graduate from high school. So be sure to check in on that.
That's good advice. When I was on the college side of the desk, one of the things that we noticed with our early grads was while they were capable and qualified, they were going up against students who had 4 years. And you're looking for the most qualified candidates. So when you have a lot of applicants applying and you're trying to make those decisions as an admissions committee, and on top of that too, oftentimes it's that last year, the senior year, where students are oftentimes maybe engaged in a leadership activity, where they got involved in a club or an organization or something early on as a freshman or sophomore, and then worked their way up. And so many schools are looking for that balance. So good advice. We really do recommend check with the colleges that you're considering, get their insights, pick their brains.
How about, Susan, how about if a student wants to graduate a semester early? Can they enroll at the University of Iowa for what would be considered their 8th semester of high school? Or let's say they start at the community college. How does that look for admissions?
Yeah, so if a student graduated high school in January or December and did their sort of 8th semester, that spring of senior year, if you will, at the community college, we would still consider them a freshman coming in because you're coming in with your cohort. And so you would still be considered an incoming first year student if you started with us in August. You'd go through freshman orientation just like all the rest of your peers. If you decided you wanted to try to come to Iowa that spring semester, you definitely can. We would want you to be really intentional about that though, because as a brand new freshman, we build in a lot of things into the fall semester when the majority of our freshmen are starting that are going to help you make that transition. So things like a freshman orientation program, intentional first year seminars for your major, even the housing process. If you start in the fall, you're moving in with all of the other freshmen that are, going through the same thing, going through the same transition at the same time. You certainly can at Iowa come in the spring for your first semester, but we want you to really be prepared that it will be a different social transition than if you were coming in the fall with the majority of our incoming students.
I mean, that's a phenomenon at our high schools, is that kids want to graduate a semester early. If you want to graduate a semester early, students, make sure you're starting your conversation early so that you can plan with your counselors. That could either, through your 4-year academic plans that you guys created, but also maybe sitting down with them this semester or early next semester just to say, I'm thinking about this, what do I need to do? A couple other questions that we can help answer in dual credits. We do offer dual credits through Oakton Community College. Some of our classes like Project Lead the Way, our engineering classes, health careers, accounting, business classes, those are all classes that would be dually enrolled. And so kids, if you are interested in dual credits and you need to get your transcripts, you just will go to Oakton and you request a transcript just like you do it at Niles West. One of the questions I got here, Susan, is if a student is good academically but not involved in sports, will this impact his or her admissions or scholarship program?
I would say no, not at all. It doesn't have to be sports or athletics. I would encourage you all to get involved in something. It doesn't have to be sports. It can be music. It can be speech or drama or theater or youth group or volunteering or student council. Find something, something that's interesting to you with a group of people that are a good social fit for you that you just get excited about. It definitely does not have to be sports, but we would love to see you do something outside of class. I think that can tell a college or university or a scholarship committee a lot about you as a person of, what do you do with your time outside of school? We even, the last few years with the pandemic, a lot of those opportunities were curtailed. And so we've had students talk to us on their activities list or in their essays about just hobbies that they picked up, during those early days of the pandemic when we were really sheltering in place. What did you do to spend your time when you weren't working on homework? So find things that are meaningful and exciting to you. Definitely doesn't have to be sports, but try to find something.
That's great advice. I know we have some students that are Eagle Scouts. That's huge. Sometimes they forget that stuff outside of school is significant, or they're working, they're helping to support their parents. Maybe they're a young entrepreneur and they started up a business or something like that, working for a community service organization. All great stuff to share with the colleges.
Absolutely.
Susan, can you talk a little bit about the net price calculator, helping families with the financial fit?
Yeah. So during your senior year, you and your families will fill out a form called the FAFSA, or the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It's about 120 questions long, and it will take into account information about your family's financial situation. So income and assets and those kinds of things. As a sophomore or a junior, you won't need to fill out the whole FAFSA, but there is a tool called the net price calculator that almost every college or university should have on their website, that will allow you to answer fewer questions. It's not the whole 120 question form, but you can answer some questions to get at least a general idea of what types of scholarships and financial aid you might be looking at from that school. So for example, if you fill out the University of Iowa's net price calculator, we'll ask you some questions, some academic, some financial, to be able to give you at least a ballpark of what your cost of attendance might include. Every college or university should have some type of tool like that. So that can be a way for you to start looking into that information and getting an idea of, what you might be looking at in terms of cost of attendance. I would always say when you actually fill out this specific form, the numbers might look a little bit different. So always check in with the college if you have questions, but that net price calculator can be a helpful tool to help you plan ahead.
Thank you, Susan. There's no more questions, but I also just wanted to just highlight the College and Career Resource Center's Instagram accounts. At Niles West is at NWCRC 1120, and at North is Niles North CCC. The reason why we want to highlight this is that we will publicize all of our college reps coming up, our special evening programs, testing. We just put a lot of different informations out there for the students and families to follow. So take advantage of that. I'm going to put up Ms. GS and Mr. Pope's contact information. Work with us as your college counselors, work with your school counselors, work with the Dean of College Counseling. It's a wealth of resources that we have here at Niles West. Like Susan, she is an admission representative. Admission representatives are the first ones to evaluate your college applications. So make sure you're utilizing them, because they work for the Office of Admissions, not the Office of Denial. So they want you to work with them. They want you to talk with them, and they're real people, and they're really nice people as well. So that's why we wanted to just kind of show a face, helping our sophomores kind of begin this whole process, but knowing that we are here together as a team. Ms. GS, any final thoughts?
I just wanted to thank our guest speaker once again. Susan, thank you so much for spending the time with us this evening. You certainly reiterated some points that we share with families, but as you stated at the beginning of your presentation, oftentimes it's very helpful for our families to hear directly from an admissions person themselves. So thank you so much for being such an incredible representative in that regard. And thank you to all of our families who attended this evening, and to my colleagues, Mr. Pope and Mr. Jin. Thanks so much.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks, Susan. Take care. Bye-bye.